Hey everyone! So, since it's been a while since I've done a proper Speedpaint video, I decided why not do one, just for the fun of it. A nice simple illustration of a character inspired by cherries. Well, as you can tell by the title of the video, things did not go according to plan. At all. So rather than show you guys everything that went right, why not show you guys some of the stuff that went wrong as well? Because I think it's far more entertaining, and you guys can learn from my many mistakes. Buckle up, grab some snacks. This is how I tried and failed to do a simple illustration. So I didn't have any plans to start with aside from a cherry themed character. So I basically just looked up pictures on Google of people holding baskets and decided to go from there. So I did a quick thumbnail sketch of roughly what I wanted, and surprisingly came up with something pretty quickly. It does help to look up reference pictures. This may have also been foreshadowing that things would not go according to plan. Anyway, after doing a quick thumbnail sketch, I then did the rough sketch, then a refined sketch. To really make sure this would go according to plan, I even started blocking in the colours. And that's when I had the bright idea of doing a lineless piece. After all, I've done a couple of those and they turned out just fine, so I decided to go for it. So at this point, I had an idea of the colours I wanted to use, mostly reds with hints of green. And this is where I noticed my first big problem, not having a clear enough sketch. Apparently I didn't realise that the sketch just wasn't that clear. But I figured this is only a minor setback, and surely this wouldn't come back to bite me in the anyway. I blocked the colours in the vague shape of the drawing, then refined the shapes. This took so many layers to do, and of course I didn't even name them. So I quickly started naming them, then decided that there were too many to name. Eventually I got to the eyes and accidentally made nightmare fuel. This doesn't look any better. Then I drew in the eye colour and it was slightly less horrifying. And then I added the pupils and never mind. Then I shaded in the irises and it was fine. And eventually I decided I'll use Illustrator to make a nice clean vector, then import the layers to Photoshop to shade. Keep in mind I haven't used Illustrator in a long time, but that shouldn't be a problem, right? So I imported the image to Illustrator and set to work lining it with the pen tool. This sounds easy enough, right? I've got the base of the image, they're all in separate blocks of colour. All I have to do is just trace each section and it should be fine. Except no, not at all. That's not how it works. And rather than bore you with all the details of everything that went horribly wrong, I'm instead just going to summarise it. I'm making a production out of it, apparently. So without further ado, I present to you the 5 stages of grief. Stage 1, denial. This is actually so easy. Everything's smooth, everything's going well. I don't even know why I dreaded this step so much. Stage 2, anger. What the heck? I only moved the scroll bar like a millimetre. Why is it going everywhere? Well, why is this doing that? Why isn't this moving to where I want it to be? Stage 3, bargaining. Maybe if I just repositioned the layers a bit. Oh. Stage 4, depression. Why do I do this to myself? This was a mistake. Stage 5, accepting the fact it's not turning out and going back to Photoshop. Look, I know it would have turned out if I put a bit more time and effort into it, but this is what I had to work with. And I know some of you are probably going to say it doesn't even look that bad, but take it from someone that's a perfectionist. This isn't what I want. This was not turning out. I didn't know what to do with it. And I figured at least in Photoshop it's easier to adjust everything. even though I wouldn't be able to get the sleek, smooth look I was looking for. Also, I decided to ditch the lineless look and go for a lined piece instead. So this brings us to... It's a new day, and I was determined to turn things around. This was it, the redemption for my past mistakes. The story of the underdog rising above all to finish this drawing once and for all. It has been a journey from start to finish, from hopeful beginnings to a quick descent into madness, and now we're here, beginning the climb back to where I was before. All that aside, I actually enjoyed this part way more than I thought I would. For starters, it was actually easy to line everything since I had the colours blocked in roughly the right shapes. Which really goes to show that I should have had a clean sketch to begin with, but that's beside the point. The point is, I was already having a much easier time than the previous attempts. It also helped that I managed to find the motivation and energy to finish this piece, which is a miracle. Especially after the Illustrator fiasco where I was tempted to put this aside and possibly forget about it until many years later. But I couldn't do it. Sure, I'd already put so much time and effort into this piece, but I couldn't let that go to waste. Nuh-uh. As for the character herself, I like her design and would actually draw her again. Maybe I'll even give her some friends. Fun fact, I was working on another speed paint a while ago of a character inspired by pineapples. However, the final picture was never uploaded and, along with the video that was recorded, is stored away on an external storage device, since I got a new computer. Unfortunately, I don't have permission from myself to access the files. Thanks, Windows. So until I figure that out, I can't show you guys what he looks like. It's kind of like I put the files inside a vault that I can't open. Doesn't make sense to me either. Anyway, I still remember the design at least, so he may get redrawn someday. Who knows? But in the meantime, you're welcome to suggest some other fruits you'd like to see drawn as characters. And maybe I'll be able to get another video out in less than a year. Hopefully. I'm trying to get back into making videos, I swear. But enough about that, let's get back to the drawing itself. I tried adding some accessories to make the design more interesting, then gave up on it and went straight to shading. And this is my favourite part of drawing in general, simply because it adds life to the image. Also, I completely zone out and just get lost in my imagination. There's really not much else to say at this point. It's really just a straightforward process where I shade everything and don't think about anything in particular in the meantime. I actually zoned out to the point where I completely forgot most of this. Like, I'm watching this footage back and I'm like, I don't remember half of this. The only thing I really remember is not being happy with how the top part of the dress turned out, but everything else, I've got nothing. I don't remember most of this. How is that possible? I don't know. So I basically did the shading somehow, and there's not a lot to say at this point other than I completely zoned out and had no idea what I was doing most of the time. I did go a bit backwards and forwards here and there, like I was halfway through shading the basket when I remembered I was supposed to shade the rest of the dress. And I wasn't too pleased with how the shoes looked, but I was too lazy to redraw them, so I just shaded them anyway. I decided to actually be a bit extra and do the second lot of shading in purple, which I don't normally do. It was a bit too dark, so I changed it afterwards, but it does liven up the drawing a bit more. It adds a bit more depth to it and makes the darker areas much darker. Again, not much else to say. It was around this point where I started getting a bit antsy, so I went straight into overdrive and speed ran the rest of the shading because I just wanted to get this over with. Yeah, not much else to say here other than I probably shouldn't have rushed it, but here we are, me rushing through the shading. As for the highlights, I actually bothered to take my time for this part because even though I wanted to get this over with, I still wanted it to look somewhat presentable, so I at least put some effort into doing the highlights and making it look nice. Did it work? I guess. It's not perfect, but still better than what I usually do. I even did a second lot of highlights but in blue just to make it look nicer. And then I remembered that I forgot to shade part of the hair, so I quickly did that. And once that was all done, I then fixed up a few things, fixed the eyes because those needed a bit more work because it just didn't look like it was part of the drawing. So I went ahead and fixed that, added some extra highlights and tried to do the basket texture. Failed miserably. Then I tried to draw it in, but that didn't work either, so I did that off screen. And here we are, folks. The final product. Thank you guys for watching and I hope you enjoyed this video. This may be the most effort I put into anything I've ever worked on. I haven't decided if it was worth it or not. I know I started rambling towards the end, but that's because I didn't know what to say and I just wanted to get this video done. This was supposed to be done like 2 days ago and I'm still working on it. It's driving me nuts. But anyways, thank you all for sticking around for this long. I'll try to upload more often. I have a story time planned of when I interrupted a wedding. I'll try to get that video done sometime this year, hopefully. If I'm not too busy. I'm trying, okay?